Hi everyone, this week you are going to be reading Chapter 3, which is the Relational Model 2, looking at SQL. Last week you looked at how to use QBE, or Query by Example, language with a database management system, whereas this week we're going to be switching gears a little bit and looking at SQL. SQL is short for Structured Query Language, and it's a standard database language for internet-based computing. And it's also the foundation of many database applications in a variety of careers. Almost any job that you look at in the IT field, if you're on Monster or Career Builder or any of those jobs, it's going to look for somebody who knows how to manage and create databases, and they really want people who know SQL. But it's not only something that's used in the IT field. Lots of human resources companies, lots of different companies require their employees to know a little bit at least of SQL. And if you want to learn even more about SQL, you can check out mysql.com. And it's a huge open source database that you can read about and learn a lot more about. So in Chapter 3, you are going to get started with SQL, and we still will be using Access. Now your book is going to reference Access 2010 a lot, but we have 2013, which is going to work pretty much the same way. So you will want to probably click the link that I have put with this video to open up the Premier Products database. And that way you can work through and do the things and the examples that the book is talking about. So now I have the Premier Products database open on my computer, and of course the first thing that I'm going to do is enable content. Now since previously we have been using QBE and we want to get started with SQL, we are going to need to switch over to the SQL command prompt so that we can type in those commands and that code that we're going to be asked for. So to do that, and the instructions for this are on page 72 of your book. But to do this, once you have the database open, you're going to click Create, and then you're going to click Query Design in the Queries group. And of course, as we saw last week, that's going to open up the Show Table dialog box. We just want to close that. And then if you look over here in the Results group, you can see that it says SQL. So if we click View, we are in the Design view right now. We can just switch over to SQL view. And this gives us our terminal or our command prompt where we can type in all of our commands. Anytime we need to run an SQL command, then we will just be able to click the Run button, which is in the Results group under our Query Tools Design tab. And if we need to return to SQL view after that, then again we'll just click View and switch back to SQL view after that command has been run. Now, whereas last week or before that when you've used databases in Access, you've just been able to click Create in Table to create tables. In SQL, however, you're actually going to use the SQL Create Table command to create tables, and you do that by describing its layout. So the command is actually create table, and then after the word table, you would type in the name of the table that you want to be created, and then the names and data types of the columns or your fields that make up that table. But it is important that you know the rules for naming tables, and these can vary a little bit depending on what version of SQL that you're using. But some good restrictions to keep in mind are that when you name tables and columns, those names cannot exceed 18 characters. They have to start with a letter. They can only contain letters, numbers, and underscores, and also they cannot contain spaces. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm just going to create a simple little table. So I'm going to pull my database back up. So you can see here that I have typed in the create table command for the rep table that you can see if you're looking in your book on page 74. So basically, I have typed a command starting with create table that's going to create a table named rep that is going to have fields or columns of rep number, last name, first name, street, city, state, zip, commission, and rate. And rep number, for example, is going to let the user input 2 characters to name that rep number, 15 characters for last name, 15 characters for first name, and so on. And then instead of using letters, commission and rate are both numbers. Now this differs a little bit from what you see in the book because, as is mentioned at the top of page 74, Access doesn't have a decimal data type for SQL, so we have to either use currency or number as the data type. So once I have my SQL typed in, I can simply, I'm going to move this so you can see, in my Query Tools design, click Run, and as long as I have no syntax errors, it creates a table called rep. So if I open up that rep table, you can see that my fields are rep num, last name, first name, and so on. And if I switched over to my design view, you can see that all of these are characters that have the specifications that I put in. So last name allows 15 for the field size, whereas commission and rate are both numbers. So to get back over to my SQL view from here, then I'm going to switch back to the datasheet view, and then I'm going to go back to Query 1, and once I have selected Query 1, I need to change my view to SQL view if it's not already there, and mine was. I do want to mention before I end this video that I had to delete the rep table from my database because it was already created. So if the rep table is already there, but you still want to practice creating the table, then you'll just need to make sure that it is closed. And then you can go in and delete the table. And once the table is deleted, then you can practice going in and running that SQL to create the table. I also want to point out that syntax is very important when you're writing SQL. So for example, if I leave off the end of a parentheses or put a comma in the wrong spot and I click run, I am going to get a syntax error. So sometimes I get frustrated, and I'm sure that you will too, but you have to be very, very careful when typing in your SQL. The next video will pick up with where this one left off.